Hey guys, my name is Kurayami and welcome back to another chapter of Redeeming Love. We are on chapter 3. It's a little longer than chapter 1 and 2, but let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Angel washed, put on a clean blue silk wrapper, and sat at the foot of the bed to wait for the next knock on her door. 2 more and she could call it night. She could hear Lucky's laughter in the next room. Lucky was full of laughter and fun when she was drunk, which was most of the time. The woman could lose herself in a bottle of whiskey. Angel had tried drinking with her once to see if she could lose herself, but Lucky poured and she tried to keep up. Before long, her head swam and her stomach lurched. Lucky held the chamber pot for her and laughed with sympathy. She said some people could hold their whiskey and some couldn't. She guessed Angel was one who couldn't. She took her back to her room and told her to sleep. That night, when the first man came knocking her door, Angel told him, in less than polite terms, to go away. Angry, he went to the Duchess and said he wanted to get his gold dust back. Duchess came up, took one look at Angel, and sent for Magawan. Angel didn't like Magawan, but she had never been afraid of him. He had never bothered her. He was just there and at her side when she went for her walks. He didn't say anything. He didn't do anything. He just made sure no one approached her outside the palace. She knew it wasn't as much for her own protection as it was for the Duchess. He was there to make sure she came back. Mai Ling never said what Magawan did to her when he had been sent to her room, but Angel saw the look of fear in the Chinese girl's dark eyes every time he was near. All he had to do was smile at her, and the girl would turn white and broke out in a sweat. Angel sneered inwardly. It would take more than words to make her afraid of any man. That night, when Magawan came in, Angel was only aware of a dark shape standing over her. "You're not going to get in your money's worth," she said. She focused. "Oh, it's you. Go away. I'm not going for a walk today." He ordered her tub filled. As soon as the 2 servants left, he bent over her again, grinning viciously. I knew sooner or later we'd have to have a talk. He caught hold of her. Sobering, she struggled, but he lifted her and dumped her in the ice water. Gasping, she tried to get out, but he grabbed her head and forced her under. Terrified by the iron weight of his huge hands, she fought. When her lungs burned for air, she was losing consciousness. He dragged her up. "Enough," he said. "Enough," she rasped, dragging in air. He shoved her down again. She bucked and kicked, clawing for escape. When he pulled her up again, she choked and vomited. He laughed and she knew he was enjoying it. He stood in front of her, feet planted apart, and reached for her head again. The irrational fury rose, and she swung her fist straight and sure. When he dropped to his knees, groaning, she scrambled out of his reach. When he came after her again, she screamed. He caught hold of her. She kicked and scratched, grasping with effort. He had a hand on her throat when the door burst open and the Duchess sailed in. She slammed the door behind her and shouted at them both to stop it. Magawan did as she commanded, but he gave Angel a malevolent look. "I'm going to kill you, I swear it." "Enough," the Duchess said, furious. "I heard her scream from the stairway. If the man heard, what do you think would happen?" "They'd hang him," Angel said, crossing her legs and laughing at him. The Duchess slapped her. Angel fell back in shock. "Not another word, Angel," the Duchess warned. Straining, she looked at Magawan again. "I said to sober her up, Brett, and have a talk with her. That's all I want you to do to her. Do you understand?" She yanked on the bell cord. The 3 waited in pulsating silence. The slap had silenced Angel. She knew Duchess had barely reined her in her devil. She also knew after one look at him, another foolish outburst on her part might snap his leash. When someone knocked discreetly, Duchess opened the door enough to order hot coffee and bread. When she closed the door, she crossed the room and sat down in a straightened-back chair. "I sent you to do something very simple, Brett. You do just what I tell you and nothing more," she said. Angel's right, they'd hang you. She needs a good lesson, Magdalene once said, eyes black on Angel. All her bravado had evaporated. She'd seen clearly enough that something dark and evil shone in Magdalene's eyes. She recognized that look. She had seen it on another man's face from time to time. She had never taken Brett seriously before, but he was serious indeed. She knew, also, that fear was the very last thing she could show. It would feed his bloodlust until even the Duchess couldn't stop him, so she was calm and still, like a mouse in its hole. The Duchess looked at her for a long moment. "You're going to behave now, aren't you, Angel?" Angel sat up slowly and looked back at her with grave, sardonic eyes. "Yes, ma'am." She shivered with cold. "Give her a sheet before she catches a chill." Magdalene snatched one from the bed and flung it at her. She wrapped the satin around herself like a royal robe and didn't dare look at him. Helpless rage and fear feasted upon her. "Come here, Angel," the Duchess said. Angel raised her head and looked at her. When she didn't move quickly enough, Magdalene grabbed a handful of blonde hair and yanked her up. She gritted her teeth, refusing him the satisfaction of crying out. "When she tells you to do something, you do it," he snarled and shoved her. Angel fell on her knees before the Duchess. The woman stroked her hair, and the calculated gentleness after Magdalene's brutality destroyed Angel's defiance. "When the tray arrives, Angel, eat the bread and drink every last drop of coffee. Brett will stay to see that you do. As soon as you're finished, he'll leave. I want you ready to work in 2 hours." The Duchess stood and went to the door. She glanced back. "Brett, not another mark on her. She's our best girl." "Not a mark," he echoed coldly. He kept his word. He didn't touch her, but he talked, and what he said chilled Angel's blood. She forced the bread and coffee down, knowing the sooner she was done, the sooner he would leave. "You're going to be mine, Angel. In a week or a month, you'll push Duchess too far or demand too much, and then she'll give you to me on a silver plate." She had been good since that evening, and Magdalene had not bothered her, but he was waiting, and she knew it. She refused to give him the satisfaction Mei Ling did. She always smiled at him mockingly when he came into the room. As long as she did what she was told, Duchess was happy and Brett and Magdalene could do nothing. But the walls are closing in again, more each day. Pressure inside her was building, and the effort to maintain the calm facade was draining her strength. "One more tonight and I can sleep," she thought. She held out her hands and looked at them. They were trembling. She was trembling all over. She knew she was losing control. Too much pretending for too long. She shook her head. All she needed was a good night's sleep. And she would be all right tomorrow. Just one more, she thought, and hoped he'd be quick. The knock came and she rose to answer. Opening the door, she took in the man sitting there. He was taller and older than most, and well-muscled. Other than that, she noticed nothing special about him. But she felt... what? An odd uneasiness? An increasing of her shakiness. Her nerves were jumping almost out of control. She lowered her head and breathed slowly, pushing the strange reaction down with every ounce of will she had left. One more, and I'm free for the night. Despite his 26 years, Michael felt like a callow youth, standing outside Angel's open door in the dim lantern light of the brothel hallway. He could scarcely breathe. His heart was racing so fast. She was even more beautiful than he remembered, and smaller. Her slender body was clearly outlined in blue satin wrapper. He tried not to look at below her shoulders. She stepped aside so he could enter her room. All Michael saw was her bed. It was made, but visions came to him unbidden and unnerved. He looked back at her. She smiled slightly. It was a worldly, seductive smile. She knew everything that was in his mind, even what he didn't want there. "What's your pleasure, mister?" Her voice was low and soft and surprisingly cultured, but she was so direct he was taken back. She couldn't have said anything to make him more acutely aware of what she did for her living, or of his own powerful physical attraction to her. As he entered the room, Angel closed the door behind him and leaned back against it. She waited for him to answer while making a quick assessment of him. Her uneasiness lessened. He wasn't so different from the rest. Just a little older than most, a little broader in the shoulders. He was no boy, but he looked uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. Maybe he had a wife somewhere and was feeling guilty. Maybe he had a good Christian mother and was wondering what she would think about his coming to a prostitute. This one wouldn't spend a lot of time with her. Good. Less time the better. Michael didn't know what to say. He had been thinking about seeing her all day, and now that he was here in her bedroom, he stood mute, his heart beating its way up his throat. She was so beautiful. She looked amused. Lord, what now? I can't even think past what I'm feeling. She walked toward him, every moment drawing his attention to her body. Angel touched his chest and heard him suck in his breath. She moved around him, smiling. No need to be shy with me, mister. Tell me what you want. He looked down at her. You. I'm all yours. Michael watched her cross the room to a washstand. Angel. The name fit the way she looked. Flawless, blue-eyed porcelain doll with pale skin and golden hair. Maybe marble was better description. Porcelain shatters. She looked too hard for that. So hard. He hurt looking at her. Why? He hadn't expected to feel that. He worried too much about getting past the desire he knew she would arouse him. God, give me the strength to resist her temptation. She poured water into the porcelain bowl and picked up a bar of soap. Everything she did was graceful and provocative. Why don't you come in here and I'll wash you? He could feel the heat rushing all through his body, most of it ending up in his face. He coughed and felt as though his collar was choking him. She laughed softly. I promise it won't hurt. It's not necessary, ma'am. I'm not here for sex. No, you're here for Bible study. I came here to talk with you. Angel gritted her teeth. Hiding her irritation, she let her gaze drift boldly. He moved uneasily beneath that look. She smiled. Are you sure you want to talk? I'm sure. He looked dead certain, with a sigh. She turned to dry her hands. Whatever you want, mister. She sat in the bed and crossed her legs. Michael knew what she was doing. He fought the swift desire to take her up on the clear message she kept sending him. The longer he stood silent, the more his mind drew images, and she knew it by the look in her eyes. Was she mocking him? No doubt about that. Do you live in this room when you're not working? Yes, she tilted her head. Where did you think I lived? In a little white cottage at the end of the road somewhere? She smiled to take a bite from her words. She hated men who asked questions and probed. Michael studied her surroundings. No personal articles out, no pictures on the wall, no knickknacks on the small, lace-covered table in the corner, no feminine clothing scattered about. Everything was neat, clean, spare. A modest armoire, a side table, and a kerosene lamp, a marble washstand with a yellow porcelain water pitcher, and a straight-backed chair furnished her room, and the bed on which she was sitting. He got the chair from the corner, set it in front of her, and sat down. Her satin wrap had opened a little. He knew she was toying with him. She swung her foot idly, like a pendulum. 60 seconds to a minute, 30 minutes to a half hour. All the time he had. Lord, I'd need 1,000,000 years to reach this woman. Are you sure this is one you meant for me? Her eyes were blue and fathomless. He could read nothing in them. She was a wall, an endless ocean. Clouded night sky so dark he couldn't see his hand before his face. He saw only what she wanted him to see. You said you wanted to talk, mister, so talk. Michael was saddened. I shouldn't have come to you like this. I should have found another way. What other way is there? How was he going to make her understand he was different from the other man who came to her when he came by the same way they did? Gold. He had listened to Joseph and gone to the Duchess, and then he had listened to that woman say Angel was a commodity, a fine, precious, well-guarded commodity. Pay first, then talk. Paying had seemed the easiest, most direct way. He hadn't cared about the price. Now it was clear the easiest way wasn't the best. He should have found another way, another place. She was too ready to work and not the least bit ready to listen. And he was finding himself too easily distracted. How old are you? She smiled up, slightly. Old. Really old. He figured that was right. She wasn't talking about years. He doubted much could surprise her. She looked prepared for anything, yet he sensed something else about her as well, the same way he had the first time he had seen her. Was there another layer beneath the one she was showing now? Lord, how do I get to it? How old are you? She asked, turning his question back on him. 26. Old for a gold miner. Most are 18 or 19. I haven't seen many real men lately. Her lack of subtlety put him on firmer ground. Why the name Angel? Because of how you look? Or is that your real name? Her mouth tightened slightly. The only thing she had left was her name, and she had never told anyone what it was, not even Duke. The only person who ever called her by her name was Mama, and Mama was dead. Call me whatever you want, mister. It doesn't matter. Just because he didn't want what he paid for doesn't mean she was going to give him anything else. He studied her. I think Maria suits you. Someone you knew back home? No, it means bitter. She looked at him then and went very still. What game was this? Is that what you think? She lifted one shoulder indolently. Well, I suppose Maria is as good a name as any. She began to swing her foot back and forth again, taking off the time. How long has he been here? How long did she have to put up with him? He kept on. Where you're from? Here and there. He smiled slightly at her polite, sultry sentence. Any here and there in particular? Just here and there, she said. Her foot stopped and leaned forward. What about you, mister? What's your name? You from any place in particular? Do you have a wife somewhere? Are you afraid to do what you really want? She was leveling all barrels at him. But rather than be taken aback, he felt himself relaxing. This girl was more real to him than the one who had greeted him at the door. Michael Hosea, he said. I live in a valley southwest of here, and I'm not married, but I will be soon. She frowned uneasily. It was the way he was looking at her. The intensity unnerved her. What sort of name is Hosea? He smiled. His smile became weary, prophetic. Was he making a joke at her expense? Are you going to tell me my future? You're going to marry me, and I'm going to take you out of here. She laughed. Well, my third proposal today. I'm so flattered. Shaking her head, she leaned forward again, her smile cold and cynical. Did he think this was a new approach? Did he think this was necessary? When would you like me to start playing my part, mister? After the ring's on your finger. Right now, I want to get to know you a little better. She hated him for dragging the game on. Wasted time, the hypocrisy, the endless lies. It had been a long night, and she was in no mood to humor him. What's to tell? What I do is what I am. All it comes down to is you telling me what you want me to be. But be quick, your time's almost up. Michael saw he had made a fine mess of his first meeting. What had he expected? To come in here, talk plain, and walk out with her on his arm? She looked like she wanted to give him the boot. He was angry at himself for being such a naive fool. You're not talking love, Maria, and I didn't come here to see you." The steady deepness of his words and that name, Maria, roused her anger even more. "No?" She tilted her chin. "Well, I think I understand." She stood. He was sitting, and she moved close, her soft hands combing into his hair. She could feel his tension and really relished it. "Let me guess, mister. You want to get to know me. You want to find out how I think and what I feel. And most of all, you want to know how the nice little girl like me is doing in a business like this." Michael closed his eyes and clenched his teeth, trying to close out the effect her touch was having on him. "Do what you're thinking about doing, mister." Michael put her firmly away from him. "I came to talk with you." She studied him through narrowed eyes and then yanked her wrapper closed and tied the satin ribbons. She still felt exposed beneath his scrutiny. "You came to talk with the wrong girl. You want to know what you can have? I'll tell you." And she did, explicitly. He didn't blush this time. He didn't even react. "I want to know you, not what you can do," he said roughly. "If you want a conversation, go down to the bar." He stood. "Come away with me and be my wife." She gave a harsh laugh. "If you want a wife, send for one by mail, or wait for the next wagon train to cross the mountains." He came toward her. "I can give you a good life. I don't care how you got here, or where you've been before. Come with me now." She smiled diversely. "For what? For the same? Look, I've heard it all before from 100 others. You saw me and fell in love, and now you can't live without me. You can give me a wonderful life. What a crock." "I can." "It all comes down to the same thing." "No, it doesn't." "From my point, it does. Half an hour is more than enough time for anyone to own me, mister." "You're telling me this is the life you want?" "What did want have to do with anything? This is my life." "It doesn't have to be. If you had a choice, what would you want?" "From you? Nothing." "From living." A blatantness settled inside her. Living? What was he talking about? She felt battered by his questions and defended herself in an aloof, cool smile. Spreading her hands, she showed off her simple room with the sparse furnishings. "I have everything I need right here. You've got a roof, food, and fine clothes." "And work," she said tightly. "Oh, don't you forget about my work. I'm real good at it." "You hate it." She was silent a moment, weary. "You just drew me on one of my bad nights." She went to the window. Pretending to look out, she closed her eyes and fought for control. What was wrong with her this evening? What was it about this man that got to her? She preferred the numbness to this stirring of emotion. Hope was torment. Hope was the enemy, and this man was a thorn in her side. Michael came up behind her and put his hands on her shoulders. He felt her tense at his touch. "Come home with me," he said softly. "Be my wife." Angel shrugged his hands off angrily and moved away from him. "No thanks." "Why not?" "Because I don't want to leave, that's why." "Is that a good enough reason for you? If you won't go with me, at least let me get a little closer." "Finally, here we go." Six steps ought to do it, mister. All you have to do is put one foot in front of the other." "I'm not talking feet and inches, Maria." All the feelings slowed inside her and spiraled down as they were draining away into a black hole beneath her feet. "Angel," she said. "My name is Angel. Have you got that? Angel. And you're wasting my time and your dust." "I'm not wasting anything." She sat on the bed again and let out her breath. Tilting her head to one side, she looked up at him. "You know, mister, most men are fairly honest when they come. They pay, take what they want, and leave. Then there are a few others like you. They don't like being like the rest, so they tell me how much they care and what's wrong with my life and how they can fix it. Her mouth curves sardonically. But eventually they all get past that and get down to what they're really after. Mako drew in a breath. She didn't mince words. Fine. He could talk plain too. I only have to look at you to be made aware of my body. You know pretty well how to feed fertility. Yes, I want you, but you're wrong about how much and for how long. She grew even more uneasy. You shouldn't feel so bad. It's just the way men are. Hogwash. Now you're going to tell me about men? That's something I know all about, mister. Men. You don't know anything about me. Every man likes to think he's different from the last. He likes to think he's better. She patted the bed. Come here and I'll show you just how much alike you are. Or are you afraid I might be right? He smiled gently. You'd be more comfortable with me in that bed, wouldn't you? He came over and sat in the chair, not in the least disconcerted. He leaned toward her, his hands loosely clapped between his knees. And I'm not saying I am any better than any other man who comes to you. I just want more. Such as? Everything. I want what you don't even know you have to give. Some men expect a whole lot for a couple of ounces of gold dust. Listen to what I have to offer you. I don't see that what you're offering is any different than what I've got. Someone rapped twice on the door. Relief swept through Angel. She didn't bother to hide it. Smirking, she shrugged. Well, you got your half hour of talk, didn't you? She stood and walked past him. She took his hat from the hook by the door and held it out to him. Time to go. He looked disappointed, but not defeated. I'm coming back. Whatever makes you happy. Michael touched her face. Change your mind. Come with me right now. It's got to be better than this. Angel's heart raced. He looked as though he really meant it, but then Johnny had looked sincere too. Johnny, with his charm and glib tongue. When it was all said and done, all he had wanted was to take something away from Duke, and then use it. All she had wanted was to get away. They both failed, and the terrible cost of it had been far too great. Angel wanted this farmer out of here. Your gold dust is better spent elsewhere. I haven't got whatever it is you're looking for. Try Maggie. She's a philosopher. She started to open the door. Michael flattened his hand against it. You've got everything I'm looking for, and I wouldn't have felt what I did the first time if I saw you. I wouldn't feel this certain now. Your half hour is up. Michael saw that she wasn't going to listen. Not this time anyway. I'm coming back. All I ask is for one honest half hour of your time. She opened the door for him. Mister, 5 minutes and you'll run like the devil. Well guys, that is end of chapter 3. I hope you're enjoying this series as much as I am. I do apologize for my pronunciations and my the way I read. Sometimes my brain or my words can't get in touch with my brain. I don't know. I'm tired. If you want to hear more, please consider commenting, or subscribing. Do whatever you want. I don't really care. I'm just doing this for me. But again, if you watch it, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.